What's up, you team of bad savages? My name is Tom, and the secret soldier that US was afraid to send to war will be the video that I will react to today. And also, don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. And if you want to become the sponsor of this channel, don't be shy, click the button below the video. It will help the channel growth, and also I will be able to put more work into the channel, all for you guys. So let's jump in.
It was the night before one of the most transcendental military invasions in human history, and hundreds of C-47 sky trains darted across the English Channel, carrying thousands of brave paratroopers about to face the darkest chapter of their lives.
My gosh.
The warplanes carried a group of paratroopers unlike any other, with mohawk haircuts and tribal face paint. The outfit, led by the rebellious and untamed Jake McNasty McNeese, laughed and joked even as their aircraft was engulfed by fierce German flak fire. As the Skytrain lost altitude, McNeese ordered his men to prepare for the jump. The lights inside the cabin then turned red, and the men scrambled to their feet amid fire and thunder. As McNeese and his comrade Willie made it to the door, flak burst through the warplane's belly, hitting Willie's backpack and unraveling his parachute inside the plane. Now significant.
Just imagine the chaos that happened. You are getting thrown into enemy territory behind the enemy lines. Man, this is stressful. You know, people are, they love to think and they like when you know the picture of the future, right? But when you don't know the picture, man, this is so terrifying. I know by myself, you know, and you get dropped. You can get killed. I just cannot imagine the amount of stress that those soldiers were going through in that moment. I just cannot imagine.
Damaged, the C-37 continued to lose altitude as Willie desperately tried to gather his parachute and move away from the door so other paratroopers could jump. McNeese then jumped into the flak-lit skies over France, and the Skytrain exploded in midair only a few seconds later.
Oh my gosh.
There was no time to mourn, as McNeese and the rest of the notorious Filthy 13 outfit were now behind enemy lines in Normandy, and they had a crucial mission to finish.
Man, this is already impressive. I'm really curious.
Hellraiser. Jake McNeese grew up during the depths of the Great Depression and had to work to support his family from the age of 10.
Wow.
Hunting and fishing to feed his kin gave the young man a formidable physical condition that helped him stand out when he finally went back to school. In high school, McNeese joined the football team and found work as a fireman. He soon earned a reputation for being a defiant teen who would do anything to win. One of his teachers would remember him, quote, "He was not afraid of the devil and was always doing the unconventional thing." Soon after McNeese's graduation, the U.S. entered World War II. Then, after a nasty brawl in his hometown in Oklahoma, where he beat a man to a pulp, he decided to enlist to get the police off his back. McNeese did not want to join the infantry, and instead decided to join the emerging U.S. paratrooper experiment. He figured he would be dropped deep inside enemy lines and obey no one while engaging German soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. He would later say, quote, "If a man wanted to kill me, I wanted to look him in the eye." And thus, the mischievous Jake McNeese became the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment's problem. A wild bunch.
I know one thing, that in army, these kind of people, they get corrected, right? I don't know why. It's my opinion, of course. I might be wrong, but I think in army they can make like this kind of soldier a better person. They just can't do it, right? So maybe it was a right choice for him, you know?
Including paratrooper units in the U.S. military was a risky and ambitious experiment, as the American authorities knew many troopers would not make it to the ground alive. The recruiter told McNeese as such when he asked to join, going as far as letting him know that only 10 out of 1,000 would-be paratroopers made it past the excruciating physical training. Still, McNeese excelled during training and quickly became the best recruit in his unit. But he was as reckless as he was fit, and soon became known around the camp for his defiant antics. Afraid that he would influence other recruits, McNeese was put into a particular troublemaker unit, where 5 would-be paratroopers were assigned to a single tent. The accommodations were derelict, with the tents having no flooring besides the muddy dirt of the Georgian countryside. But McNeese and his men didn't care about appearances, opting to save water for cooking instead of cleaning themselves, and soon earning the nickname of the Dirty Five. McNeese and the Dirty Five continued to gain a reputation as rebels, missing roll calls, getting drunk, and participating in bar brawls regularly. One night,
These are the guys you want to send behind the enemy lines for sure.
after causing a significant fight inside a bar, 2 military police officers intervened. When the MPs started to beat one of McNeese's friends into submission, he assaulted them, disarmed them, and fired in every direction to empty the guns, leaving the officers injured and perplexed. McNeese was severely punished and was the only recruit not to be promoted during his training. Still, the authorities knew he was the best, and they needed him. When someone suggested to McNeese's commander that they should discharge him, he responded, quote, "McNeese isn't hurting anything. There will be a time when you'll be awful glad to have McNeese around." Mohawks and war paint. By the time they made it to England, the Dirty Five had grown into the Filthy 13. The group then continued rehearsing jumps in preparation for the Normandy landings. Even out of combat, McNeese had lost several friends to parachute malfunctions. Still, the Filthy 13 relished in the danger and risk that came with the job.
Also, like there are so many risks being dropped like that with the parachute, because you can be stuck on a tree. Enemy just can shoot you. They will look for you, and if they find you, they're gonna kill you. So you have to have this killer instinct, you know, to survive, and a lot of luck also.
When they were not jumping out of a plane, they were causing mayhem in camp as their way to let off steam. During an advanced demolition training session a few days before D-Day, McNeese set up a charge in a nearby tree that was triggered when a soldier on patrol walked by, sending the man into a panic. The top brass arrested the entire group, but they were released to take part in the Normandy operations. The 13 men had now formed a unique and feared unit. Before taking off for Normandy, the men saw McNeese wearing face paint and a mohawk haircut. He told them he was part Indian, and it was part of his cultural and spiritual heritage. The paint, he said, would be an excellent camouflage once they were behind enemy lines. In truth, only part of the story was genuine. Jake's mother was half Choctaw, but everything else was made up. Encouraged by McNeese, the men cut their hair and painted their faces. They then boarded the warplane sporting a daunting look that would be spread around the world as the press released images of the peculiar warriors about to be thrown into Nazi-occupied France. Everyone wanted to know what the Filthy 13 were really capable of. Normandy jump. Before deploying, McNeese's mission was shifted. The task he'd been assigned was changed into a much more vital role. He and his men had to blow up the bridges below the Douve Canal and then capture and hold the main bridge.
Talking about the Mohawks, guys, before going into fight, for sure, you need some kind of extra thing that will help you maintain this sanity, right? Because you don't want to lose your become crazy because of all the stress, right? This is like part of preparing for the fight, you know, as I see it.
The crucial mission required additional support, and McNeese asked for 6 more paratroopers, knowing that he would lose at least half his men during the jump. The unit took off from England at 11 p.m. on June 5, 1944, along with nearly 1,000 other C-47s, loaded with thousands of paratroopers. They enjoyed a clear and bright night for about 20 minutes, before seeing the first flak set off around them. The following minutes were hectic and savage for the young paratroopers. Their aircraft was heavily engaged and losing altitude, forcing them to jump prematurely. McNeese barely escaped from the plane before it exploded, and many of his friends lost their lives, including Willie, whose parachute had been unfurled by enemy fire. The entire paratrooper operation was plagued with tragedy, and half the troopers that took off from Britain would never return. It was no different for the Filthy 13, and McNeese lost over half of his men during the jump and the minutes after that. Still, 3 of the surviving men managed to reunite on the war-torn fields of Normandy, and they were joined by 12 other U.S. paratroopers who had been separated from their units. From the moment they landed, they were targeted by German soldiers, and they had to react quickly and defend themselves. The Americans identified themselves by the sound of their rifles in contrast to German fire. As such, they were able to...
I think Germans were like shocked. They thought, what the hell is going on over here? Because paratroopers, the invasion when started, Germans were not ready at all. As I heard, like the one of the generals were just drunk, and when the paratroopers started dropping, man, they were like, oh my goodness, oh my gosh, what's gonna be now, you know?
To regroup and repel the Germans. Holding the bridge. Once they were on their feet again, McNeice and his men managed to reach the main Douve Canal, blow up some smaller bridges, and move to the main bridge. The objective was to capture and hold it so it could be used by American troops. If they could not keep the crossing, they had orders to blow it up so the Germans could not use it to reinforce the beachheads.
Yeah.
Against all odds, the Filthy 13 dug in on one side of the bridge and maintained control, preventing the Germans from crossing. Then, after 3 days of holding the bridge, under constant German fire from the other side of the canal, the U.S. authorities decided that McNeice's unit had been wiped out and sent a squadron of P-51 Mustangs to blow out the bridge. The Mustangs swept in and destroyed the bridge, while also striking the German and U.S. positions on each side of the canal. McNeice and his men were well dug in and survived the strike, after which they continued to defend their positions.
Literally, at war, your will to live is tested. Because, like, if you don't have the vision that you can survive, if you don't have the feeling that you want to live, continue to move, you're gonna die. And that's it. War is ruthless, you know. Even if you want to live, sometimes you can just get unlucky, you know. But, you know, some people who there are people who can survive because they have this will to live.
2 days passed, and the Germans were significantly pushed back from the beachheads. A large group of Germans was then trapped in a flooded area near where McNeice and his men were positioned. There were over 700 enemy soldiers, and McNeice had managed to assemble a team of 40. Fortunately, the German commanders sent a messenger asking McNeice to surrender, thus avoiding a complete wipeout. However, McNeice responded by saying they would never yield, but were more than welcome to submit to them. The German officer was livid and felt insulted, so he decided to attack. McNeice then ordered his men to hold their fire until most Germans left their trenches. By now, Jake had machine guns, mortars, and all the equipment he needed for a formidable defense. Still, when the Germans were midway in their charge towards McNeice, he ordered his men to open fire. The onslaught was devastating for the Germans, and McNeice claims to have taken the lives of nearly 700 enemy soldiers.
Oh my gosh. Just imagine the slaughter that was happening there, because people who are the family members of the soldiers who died, right? They maybe even won't get to see them for the last time because there's nothing left of their body, because it's minced meat overall, you know? And this is what, by the way, happening in Russia right now also, like a lot of soldiers just becoming a minced meat because there are just all these meat like rushes into enemy position where the soldier just gets destroyed. And then the government doesn't have to pay anything to the parents and nothing because he just disappeared, you know? We don't know, maybe he like deserted.
Continued mayhem. The Filthy 13 were made up of over 30 different men throughout the war and continued to wreak havoc on the Germans while enjoying every minute of it. Despite grave injuries and incredibly antagonizing odds, McNeice survived and accomplished numerous missions. He credits his rebellious attitude and daredevil approach to his survival. Paratroopers were already some of the best, most aggressive U.S. soldiers in the war, and McNeice took that perception and scaled it up to become a genuinely fearsome threat to the Axis powers. McNeice's father would later comment about his son's war accomplishments, quote, "I think he was trying to build upon the idea that if they're scared of us as crazy paratroopers, well, this just makes us look crazier." McNeice became one of the only paratroopers to make 4 wartime jumps and live to tell the tale. After Normandy, he jumped as part of Operation Market Garden in the Netherlands. Then he was dropped in Germany before the Battle of the Bulge for reconnaissance duty. As the war waned, he volunteered for Pathfinder training, anticipating he would sit out the rest of the war in a training camp in England. To his surprise, his unit was called for one last jump into Bastogne to guide and resupply drops. He was eventually awarded the French Legion of Honor Chevalier class for his brave actions in France in 2012. At the end of the day, the officers that put up with McNeese's antics during training were proven correct. The war needed men like him. The Filthy 13 became an iconic and legendary unit, not only for its over-the-top looks,
These guys are born to fight in a war.
but also for its incredible combat deeds. Jake McNeese, with the help of historian Kaleo Griffith, would eventually document all of his wartime adventures in the book The Filthy 13, From the Dust Bowl to Hitler's Eagle's Nest, which only added more fuel to the legend.